Yes, the family got together. We had a party at the house. Don't forget when we invited, well, when the bliss was, we invited most of our, should be at least a minion. We had cakes and drinks and schnapps and all that was a little affair. It wasn't big affairs like they do now. It was a little affair.
How did it change your life to have two kids in the house as opposed to one?
2 kids? Well, it's just twice as much work, that's all. Mama was so tired out, she didn't have no help. When I came home, she just flopped into bed. When she flopped into bed, she fell asleep. When you woke up, she didn't hear you, but I did. And you was all about pished and about cocked and so forth. So I cleaned you up, and then she breastfed you each for about 6 or 8 months, and she always put a diaper pin on the last side that you had. So I would turn her around and I would put you next to her tits and you ate over there and your felt was good and so forth. And after you got through, I cleaned you up again and put you back in the crib, and that was it. Following morning she woke up, she says, "What do you think?" I says, "Yes." So what is it? He says, "The baby wasn't up wasn't up all night, slept all the way through." I said, "That's what you think." She didn't even remember that you woke up. She was so tired.
Well, Sean was 3.5 years old then. Was he in nursery school? Did you have nursery school?
No, we had to have it on nursery school at that time. Well, he had little friends. But there was a lot of kids in the neighborhood his age. They played together.
You remember any differences in the ways you raised Sherwin and raised me as little kids? He was the first child, I was the second. I don't know.
What way? What do you mean? Well, the first one, of course, he was more pampered with. We gave in a lot to him, more than we did with you. And as I said, he would hold his breath until he would pass out in order to get his ways. But after, through him, he learned better. So when you came along, we didn't get excited like we did with Sherman. In other words,
I got the short end of the stick, is what you're telling me. I couldn't get anywhere.
No, just like you see them in the movies, where the little boy is advertising these wipers, for the baby wipers. He says, when I was a baby, they used the small wipers. And now they come big wipers, much softer, and how easy it is. And look how they showed how the mother works on the baby, how cleans them. It says, Mama's spoiling him rotten. That's what I think Shiva must have said, that Mama was spoiling you rotten.
We're in the late 30s now, right before World War II. There were problems going on in Europe. Do you remember anything about what was going on in the United States towards the problems in Europe, the problems of the Nazis, the invasion of Poland?
Oh yes. As a matter of fact, I was forced to take a what do you call it? A job in the fence in the mail. All those, even though I had 2 children, I had to put in certain hours in the mail, work in the mail. And I had quite a few salesmen that I know. You went in there and applied for jobs. You had to apply for jobs. They would get so much an hour. They'd go over there all dressed up and go to sleep and just punch the card and go in there. And they're supposed to go a certain place. Of course, that time Gary Steamer was the largest in the United States. And there were thousands of them. He'd find a place where he'd go to sleep, and he would sleep all night. In the morning, he'd come back, take a shower, and get dressed, and then punch the clock back, came home, and went out to work. Well, I worked there for 2 weeks.
So you didn't sleep?
Oh no, I didn't work at night. I worked in the afternoon or in the evening. And it was so damn monotonous. They would try to teach me how to inspect steel. They made of steel rods, how to look forward to. They had two big, husky black men used to pick up that rod, and put it on a long bench like, two horses. And the inspector would go around and show us what to look forward to. So, first we had to wait till the heat got away from the rod so we can stay and look at it. Meantime, he would send us to go for a coffee, go to the toilet. So by the time we got through with one rod, it took 2 hours, 3 hours, And then he had to go. So he was away for half an hour to eat. Meantime, we sat around, and we'd done absolutely nothing. We worked the whole night through. Maybe we went through with 3 rods, those thin, long rods. Otherwise, it got so monotonous. It was, and the fellas played cards, they get along, and they didn't want to work. Apparently, I went into their room. I wanted to see the manager, whatever it was. I says, I would like to change positions. What is it? I says, I'm in this inspection room and I don't like it. I don't want them to say I wasn't doing anything, because I know some of my friends, all they did was sleep. He said, what would you like? I said, well, maybe in the stock room, purchasing, where keep inventory and stock, and to be able to say, keep inventory, what goes in, what goes out, and how much comes, so forth. He says, that's a nice job. Okay, he said, I'll tell you what, you can stay home, and I'll find a job, and it's an opening, first opening, I'll call you. That was the end of my work in the mills.
What was known in the United States about what was going on in Europe when the Nazis invaded Poland? This is 1939. What did you know about it? What did you hear about it?
Well, at that time the radio was on. We had a little radio, and most other news was nothing but newspaper. Besides the radio, we had newspaper. There was no television or anything like that. And whatever we heard, whatever the government wanted us to hear. We didn't know anything that was going on in concentration camps and all that stuff. We didn't know anything until the war was over. After they went in there, after the United States went in there and found those camps and found those people there, then we happened to know about it. Then letters started to come.
You didn't know anything about the Holocaust while it was going on?
No, nothing at all. No, nothing was said. The only thing we knew is there was a boatload of Jews that was sent through Amsterdam over to the United States. And Roosevelt, that time we had Franklin Roosevelt,
He was the president.
President would not permit him to land. Would not give him permission to land. He pleaded with him. They had to go back to Germany in concentration camp, and he was killed.
There was a movie made about that, Ship of Fools.
That was the road. And he knew that they knew the secret over there, but nobody else knew about it. The government knew. He sent the Jews back with the boat and all. They were all taken to a camp and burned.
Now,
But we didn't know that until after the war.
now when World War II came, what was the effect on the family and the financial situation?
Well, when the war, first of all, we were put on rationing. We got rationing on gasoline, rationing on meat. We had to have coupons to buy the most essential items, like meats, and coffee, and butter, and lard, and fats, and so forth. We each had coupons, and they allotted so much to each family, as much as they had. Being that I was in the premium business, and I had to use my card for my business, I got all the stamps I needed for gas. Otherwise, if you had a family card and you had no business, you was given a limited amount of gas. That's all you could use. And I was offered many times so much amount of money that I should sell some of my coupons. I had more coupons than I needed because I had a 4-cylinder truck. I didn't travel too much because I couldn't get the merchandise.
Did you sell some of your coupons?
No, I gave them to my friends. You see, at that time, I was in the premium business and I couldn't get the merchandise. I needed pots and pans and pails and so forth. And the company I was dealing with, you know, those that had established credit, they sold me so much every week. I had a quarter, so much I can get every week. And even if I would send them the cash, they wouldn't accept it. I had to sign for it and send me a bill, and after that I would send them a check. For cash, I had to buy at Goldblatt's at the department store. I used to buy cash and buy the stuff that I needed for the window premium, so forth.
What kind of a store? I don't understand when you say premium business.
Well,
what was that?
at one time, they started to give out, before the war, they put in tickets with the merchant's name on it. And they had a punch card with 5 cents, 10 cents, and so on. After you punched the card out, a $5 punch card or $10 punch card, you were entitled to buy any item, pots or pans or whatever charge cadet, for $1. And it's usually sold for $1.50 to $2. You know, but they buy it for $1. That's how I started it. But after a while, I got this stamp idea that was given to me, where trading stamp, where I would go into a merchant and sell them a book of stamps for $3, $4. It was 5,000 stamps in a book. And he gave them out, each to the customers a little book. Some had $50 book, some had $30 book. As soon as the book of stamps were filled, she would come in there and trade it in for a premium. Free. So that's where I started to make money on the stamps. And I started to make money on the books because they had to buy that, and made money on the premiums.
So you were sort of like a green stamp outfit.
It was green
Green
stamps, the blue stamps, whatever color, but it had name. Like if I want to go to the Broadway, I would put a Broadway, the Broadway. Every book, every page in that book was something about a Broadway. The stamp had Broadway. After you filled that book of stamp, you went to the Broadway, and you had a choice to pick whatever you wanted. Some items were 2 books, some items were 3 books. Then I started to handle better premiums. And that's how I built my business up, and I've done a damn good business in Gary at that time.
And you had the premium business throughout the war.
Throughout the war, yeah.
And you have any recollection of what you earned in your premium business? About how much money you made on it?
How much money I made on? Well, I really don't know. I know I don't remember paying any income tax. Because, don't forget, the only way they could check on me is from the credit that I bought from the big warehouses. You know, when the manufacturers are about dolls, pots and pans, those are the bills that I had to show. But what I bought from the stores, or from Goldblatt's, from other, I didn't have no bills for that. That's what I sold out, and I never put a report to it. I had to show you the bills when I made, yes. I had to show you the cards, but the rest of it was, I didn't know what meant to pay tax.
Remember when you moved to the house you built? That was
41?
that was right before the war.
Yeah. I started in 1938 when I bought a lot. First I bought a lot for $400. That was north of the main street. I think it was north of 4th Avenue or 5th Avenue. And I wanted to have, my home would have cost me around $9,000 or $10,000. Well, when I went to him, he says, no, he says, that home is too an expensive home for a lot like that, for that different lot. The lot was being sold by the Gary Land Company. However, if you're going to want to spend $600, then you could put out a home of that value on that $600. And that was on 6th Avenue, south of 5th Avenue, on 6th Street, where a corner lot where I bought for $600. And the rest of it I got an FHA loan for the whole house.
It was right after you moved into the house that World War II started.
In 1941, that's when I moved into the house.
Do you remember anything about the commencement of World War II and the Americans getting involved? Do you remember where you were when you heard about the attack at Pearl Harbor?
Oh, well, I was in Gary.
Now, do you remember anything about where you were, the day, what the situation was when you heard about it?
Not particularly, I just couldn't. I couldn't. Of course, we heard it on the radio. Everybody had little radios at that time, and we heard about on the radio that when Roosevelt talked about an infamous day we'll never forget. Pearl Harbor, December this, was it the 7th?
December 7, 1941.
Yeah, December the 7th, 19. That's where we heard it over the radio, and that's where the whole thing started to jumble right away, and the mills got busy, and they started putting trading stamp, and they froze all the wages, they froze all they couldn't raise any hotel rent, and so they froze everything. Everything was frozen. We came out here, and at that time to get a decent room, you had to slip them under the table to get a decent room, otherwise you couldn't get in. And
those were price controls that were started during the war.
that's right, that was price control, that's right. And price control, wages control, and also the trading stamps,
The coupons?
coupons.
That became a big business during the war.
Oh yes, that was a big bit. As a matter of fact, what's the name? Green stamps today. He was the first one that went nationwide. The green stamps, S&H green stamp,
S&H.
went nationwide. You know. And then of course we had blue chip stamps and all kinds of. They went out of business quick. They were here for a while. They were flourishing, boy. They were going like hotcakes, you know. They had such a warehouse full of merchandise. You can go in with those blue chip stamps and every store had it. and it died out. The only one who still is in existence, I think, is SNH.
Now, what effect did the war have on your family in Chicago? I know that Fran went off. Did Fran go off to war? I know
No,
Bernice went.
Bernice ran into the war, and she went away. And
How old was Bernice at the time?
well, let's see. Bernice was born in 1920, or 21.
Well, that made her about 21 years old.
Yeah, 21 years old.
And she, what did she join?
She joined the army.
She became a WAC.
A whack.
Do you remember where she went?
She went to a certain camp. I remember I even sent her a radio or a phonograph, you know, something to keep her entertained over there. I don't remember what camp. That's where she met Manny.
In the United States? Was she sent to some other city in the United States, or did she go overseas?
She didn't go overseas. No, she was in the United States. I don't think she went overseas.
What was the feeling of your mom and dad about Bernice going off to
Didn't
war?
like it.
What did they say or do?
Well, look, after all, she worked in the store. Fran worked at Goldblatt's. And Bernice got so hung up that she didn't like the store no more. She wanted out.
What do you mean by hung up? She didn't like the store.
Well, when you work with your mom and dad all the time, in the kitchen, she was a waitress, she was a cook, and she was this, she was that. She didn't have the opportunity to go out and play with her friends like the other ones did, and she resented it. And Fran didn't like the job of the restaurant, and neither did I. As a matter of fact, the chickens were hard to get, you know. So I used to buy them in Gary, you know, and dress chickens and bring them over to some mother to have chickens. Meats, I used to be able to buy some meats that she didn't get enough stamps, you know. So I used to buy, being that I knew every grocer in Gary, I never needed any stamps to buy butter or cheese or anything like that. I gave my stamps to my folks or to anybody that needed. So I used to bring her butter, and I used to bring her meats, whatever she needed, steaks and so forth, over to so that she'd have something to sell.
Well, would you go in to see your folks on the weekends?
Yes, I used to. Not every weekend, but maybe twice a month.
How did you generally travel to Chicago?
Well, I used to pick up a lot of merchandise there, once a week for my premium.
Did you generally drive your truck in?
That's the only thing I had.
And was there like a train that went from Gary to Chicago? As a kid, I remember going on the train. To
Yeah,
my
South Shore
grandparents'.
train. See, I had a 1.5-ton panel, black truck, with a long panel on it. 1.5 tons. A Ford, 4-cylinder. Chuck, you know. But it was huge inside, but I could hold a lot of merchandise. Used to come into Chicago to pick it up and take it back to Gary. Then I loaded it in the garage. I kept my garage full of stock.
What happened with your folks' restaurant business during the war? How did that do?
Well, they had a hard time of it. We used to come in once a month or something like that and stay with them. And the kids were running around. You and Sherman drove them nuts. Running around behind the counter, behind the chairs and so forth. We slept out the back. They had an extra room for you. That used to be their pleasure. And they had all steady customers, you know. The old timers. Don't forget, it was still, it was was kosher style. In other words, she wasn't strictly kosher. It was kosher style. All the meats and so on, she bought the kosher meat from the butcher that was next door to her. She bought kosher bread, fresh bread from the other side. And so everything was fresh. And those people that used to come to Marie for years and years, they still came in. They still came in. And the only thing is, my dad would say, here, he was short in help, he didn't need no help. He used to come in and help him out, and the customer would holler service. He said, look, he says, I can't get no help, I can't get no meats. If you don't like what you get over here, go next door, across the street. Maybe he has it. He didn't have it either, everybody was short, you know. So he would chase some of the customers out. He says, this is what we have, this is what we have today. You can have one steak, you have one stew, you can, in other words, if there were 4 people came in, well, not all 4 people could have steaks. You had to ration it off, provide it. Some had chicken, some had steak, some had, it was divided, they wouldn't give them all the same food.
It was hard to run a business on those.
It was hard.
And Fran was living at home? Well,
No, Fran in 1943, she had trouble with her, I don't know what it was, asthma or allergy anyway. A friend of hers moved out to Los Angeles, and she wrote her about it, and Fran came out to live with him.
Dad, we're going to get together next time and talk more about this. Thank you.
All right.
Hello, people.
Papa, Gary, this is Saturday, St. Patrick's Day. It's March 17th.
Hello.
And you are how old now, Gary?
17.
Getting ready to graduate high school?
That's right, on the SMC.
And what did you do this morning, you and Papa do?
We went down to Green Farm and rented out his store.
So it's nice to have some help, isn't it, Papa?
It sure is.
Well, it makes life easier for you when you got this type of high-level help. In fact, Papa, maybe you can hold one of your other grandchildren now.
Would I?
That's David. David is 14 months old now.
Yes, 14 months old.
He didn't go to the store with you today because he doesn't drive yet.
No.
Now,
Papa, last time we were talking about World War II
Yes.
and the family.
Yes.
Now, you were talking about Aunt Bernice going off to the war,
Yes.
and you're talking about Aunt Fran. Aunt Fran moved out of the,
Came out to California.
came out to California about 1943.
Right.
And do you remember what she was doing out here? What type of work did she do?
That I don't know. That I don't know.
And you helped out your folks in the restaurant business when you were able to.
Well, when I was able to, yes.
What do you remember most about how the war affected your life?
Well, I wouldn't say that it didn't affect me too much as far as my daily living is concerned, because I wasn't lacking for anything. I did get a job for 2 weeks at the mill, like I believe I told you about it
You told us last time.
last time. So after 2 weeks, they never called me back. And I continued my business until 46. In 1946, a year before when Bernice got married, did I tell you about that?
No, we're going to get to that. But I was just thinking about the war. What was different, if anything, about life during the war as opposed to before the war or after the war?
Well, the difference was this, that everything was rationed. In other words, everything was under control. I couldn't get my merchandise as much as I wanted from the suppliers because they cut me down a certain amount. I couldn't remember how much it was. And the only way I could get it was on credit. Cash was not accepted.
What about Sally's family?